So this is the first song that we're going to go through in the course. This has already been recorded, and we're gonna walk through the process based on the finished session. We will start with the demo work tape. There was a pre-production work tape, and we'll just talk about each of the stages, the tracking session, the overdubs that were made, some recording techniques, some thoughts about why decisions were made along the way, and we'll just take it from there. The song is called "Sometimes a Heartbreak," and the artist is Ford Terrell. So a little bit of background. Ford, a couple years, maybe a few years ago, he started writing a batch of songs, and when we got to the stage where we had 25 songs, we want to have we want to have as many songs as possible to choose from. He and I had been communicating and talking about the songwriting as he was building the catalog of songwriting ideas. And I say ideas, but many of them were finished, and most of them were finished songs. Not all, but so we collected 20 plus songs, and we're talking about this songwriting process. And then once we decided that we had enough songs to make a selection from to make an album, we started the planning stages to record. We recorded 10 songs. So we identified all the songs from the work tapes he was making. And he was making his work tapes, his demo tapes, just on an iPhone, just making a voice memo recording. So we had a collection of iPhone recordings for the demos. What I'd like to do first is I'll just play you the introduction of the song through the first chorus, just as we have it finished, so you have an idea of where we ended up. And then we'll go back to the start and just talk and walk through this process.
Sometimes a heartbreak pounds like rain on the street, keeping you in from all your dreams. You look for answers everywhere you go, but you're always coming home empty. Some people know what they're after, some never figure it out. Thought you had something that mattered, but it don't matter now. No, it don't matter now. So, what are you gonna do? What's pulling you through? Girl, what's left to lose? Oh yeah, if it's alright, I could stay by your side. I could hold you all night, hold you all night.
Cool. So there's the top of the song through the turnaround to the second verse. I was clicking around a little bit and scrolling around just so you could kind of see the scope of the session, and I opened a few plugins just for a little bit of interest. So the final song is in the key of F sharp. What we did from the work tape, from the demo, the iPhone recording, Ford came and we spent a couple days as pre-production days before our musician friends came in to help us record and track the basics of the record. And so, important part of the pre-production phase and production phase is we talked about identifying songs, having enough songs to identify from, and making a document of those songs so that It's just easier to share and talk about them. And then just have reference points. That's, I mean, when Ford wrote the song and documented it, you know, he chose the key he was writing it in. He played it at a certain tempo, and you know, just the nuances of melody and the way he was singing it. Because over time, those things can change. They can be forgotten. So it's really good to have something that he can share with me, and that is permanent, so we can reference it. So fast forward from the songwriting process and song selection, Ford came down for a couple of days of pre-production. The pre-production, we just sat in a room together, and we put one microphone in front of him, just to sort of document what we were doing as we went. Because on this particular song, the structure was intact. Ford had written the song, and it had a really nice structure to it. And you know, the arranging is what the decisions that were made as we were recording, and I was producing the record. So there were no structure changes from the original demo, but I wasn't really that confident about the key, and it mostly had to do with the chorus. It didn't really seem to sing that well to me. It just seemed to be in a I wouldn't say difficult part of his range, but it just for the melodic movement, it just didn't feel as comfortable as I thought it should. We're just going to jump in and listen a little bit.
So, what are you gonna do? What's pulling you through? Girl, what's left to lose? Oh yeah, if it's alright, I can stay by your side. I can hold you all night, hold you all night.
Oh, I landed on the first chorus. Okay, so that was in the key of D, and you can see I made some notes here. He was playing it to around 81 BPMs, beats per minute. We did just to kind of let you know, we'll talk about this more as we get into the track, but nothing on this record was recorded to a click track. Don't always do that, but demonstrating this song also, one of the reasons I chose to demonstrate this artist and this song, this project, is because it's acoustic guitar based, and the tracking was very simple. It was 3 musicians. The voice and the guitar, acoustic guitar, were tracked at the same time, although they were replaced immediately upon the take that we wanted. That was not always the case. There are at least one, possibly, my memory is not serving me great right now, but there's definitely one, possibly 2 songs on the album where the tracking vocal and acoustic that was cut and recorded when we were making the take is what we used in the final version. I chose this song because it is something that might reflect a lot of what a lot of artists, producers are trying to do with independent music or record at home. And I wanted to pick a song that also was all organic instrumentation to be able to talk about that recording process. It's a little bit easier, a little bit different, easier to record a song where you're using programming and tracks, not in the creation aspect, but in the capture aspect. It's just easier in a smaller studio environment with limited resources. So I just kind of wanted to talk about something that was a little bit more reflective of that. And also demonstrate that you don't always have to record to a click to have something that you can overdub to or work to. I think some people are afraid that if they record without a click track, that they are not going to be able to edit and add additional instrumentation, and that's not true. It is a slightly different process, and you have to be aware of some pitfalls of it, but it's easily navigatable. It's the same as recording with a click. So I've made a note about the original key that the demo was sent in and the tempo. And so then when Ford and I were together in pre-production talking about the song, I asked him to play it just a little bit faster, and also to I was wanting it to be a little bit quicker, but also, there was a discussion about changing the key. What my inclination was, and it turned out not to be totally right, and I don't remember if we tried more than one key at that particular time, but here's the chorus of the song, slightly faster, and we've lowered the key from D to C. That's a whole step. So let's just listen to that.
No, it don't matter now. So, what are you gonna do? What's pulling you through? Girl, what's left to lose? Oh yeah, if it's alright, I could stay by your side.
The chorus melody sings a little bit nicer to me, and it just feels a little bit better to me, lowering the key a little bit. But you can hear in the pre-chorus just coming into it.
That mattered, but it don't matter now. No, it don't matter now.
That part's a little bit low, but I was really just focused. I was a little bit too focused on the chorus. So that was where we left it in the key of C. It felt like with increasing the tempo a little bit and bringing the chorus down, it's sang a little bit better. And this is what you need to experiment with, and why it's good to have work tapes and make multiple work tapes and just and be able to listen to them and evaluate them. So what happened once we started recording with the band, and I'm gonna open up the acoustic guitar track, a different playlist. You can see what we've got here. This is where we started with the band, and we just recorded, as opposed to creating playlists. We were just recording all the takes in a linear fashion, and that's sort of why we're way out here with the take that ended up being the desired take. So we can hear a little bit of what's going on in the so we started out trying to work in C, and it just wasn't really feeling right with like the bass and just really in a proper recording situation. It still didn't feel like we had found the sweet spot for the key. So there's always coming home. Just kind of trying to work on it a little bit more, and then we moved to the key of F. And then we moved to F sharp. I could hold you all night, hold you all night. And to me, just the voicings on the chord, the voicings of the chords in F sharp, and the way the way he has to sing a little bit lighter, a little bit more of a head voice. It's left to lose. Oh yeah, if it's alright, I can stay by your side. Just has a little bit more urgency in the voice, and as we'll hear when we go to where the band is playing with it, just the feeling of having the weight of the drums and bass and that rhythm underneath it, and the vocal having a little bit more urgency and sitting on top, just felt like the right combination to myself and the guys too. And So then there's a bit of rehearsal, just trying to.
1, 3, 4.
So that's Ford just kind of, because we've changed the key, it changes all the chords in the progression. He's just sort of working through, giving him an opportunity to work through those changes. See, right here, you can hear where Eli is trying to find the right complementary notes on the bass for what the change is on the key of the song and what Ford's doing on the acoustic. Once we had our key established, we then worked on getting the tempo to be right. And as it turns out, because we brought the key up and the sort of the urgency of the voice and the weight of the rhythm section being there, we actually slowed the tempo back down a couple BPM, and it ends up that the original tempo that Ford had recorded in his demo work tape ended up being the tempo for the song. And I think tempo is a really important consideration. And when I start recording a record, that is something that I spend a little bit of time, anyways, at least a little bit of time, documenting what tempo we're working at. Because sometimes, as you get a band together and you go into the studio, that's when you first start everybody playing together, and you have to get a feel for it. And so I just kind of keep track of as they're sort of learning the tune or running it down, what tempos are happening. Because sometimes they fluctuate. The chorus might be faster or sometimes slower than the verse. Solo sections can be faster. It's just good to know those things. It's in this, when we're not working with a click track, it's important, so as a frame of reference, for me to know as we keep recording multiple takes that we're staying consistent. Because if I end up wanting to use the introduction and the first verse from take 3, and then we manage to, we do 7 or 8 takes, and I'm using the first part of take 3 as the beginning of the song, and then I switch over to maybe take 7 or 8. I want to make sure that we've stayed consistent enough that when I cut the two versions together to make the complete master, that it sounds natural enough. Now, that's not to say that there's not going to be tempo fluctuations because they're not playing to click. Those things happen naturally, but that we're sort of staying in the same, like we're starting with the same tempo. And sometimes in between takes, it's helpful to play a metronome for especially the drummer, just so they have oftentimes drummers are really good about staying on a tempo. Sometimes it's kind of mind-boggling how good they're at it, but it's good to have that reminder available for the musicians. It's good for me to know and to be aware that we're staying pretty consistent. Because if there was a radical jump, it may not feel comfortable. The other reason to kind of keep track of what different sections are doing is so that when you're working with a click, you know whether or not you are going to do a whole song at the same tempo. Sometimes you want tempo changes in a song when you're working to a click, and you have to program them in, and you have to figure out how to navigate it. So when I'm rehearsing a song and getting it together with an artist or a band or a group of musicians, regardless if it's in rehearsal or at the beginning of a recording day on a song, I have them play the song down without the click. I want them to not have that extra thing to pay attention to. I want them to just get comfortable with what each other's doing and, get their headphones set, all those kinds of things. But I'm keeping track of what it is they would do naturally without a click, because it can change. Sometimes some songs, the tempo will stay very consistent from beginning to end. Sometimes, like I said, sections will change. It's good to know that stuff, and it's good to know that stuff before you turn the click on, because of course, as soon as you turn the click on, the musicians are going to try to play to that tempo, and it sometimes can be just a little confusing and a little bit harder to figure out, or it just takes a little bit longer to arrive at the place that you really should be working at in terms of tempo. So tempo is really important. I always spend some time working on that, and I document it, like I said, along the way. I made notes of what Ford did his demo work tape at, what we did the pre-production at, just so that I'm able to know and sort of describe the way you can work through it with the musicians. Tempo is like a very important thing, as important as the key of a song. If something is too fast, you can lose some of the nuance and the syncopation and a little bit of the way things can move. It really matters to the voice, and how someone, are they able to hang on to the notes long enough to make good transitions from note to note, or is it too long? Is it too short? That you just have to get a feel for it. And then the key, obviously, is a huge thing. Almost all the time, I prioritize the key of the song around the singer and how they sound, where it is for their range or their voice. But tempo can influence that because if someone sort of is at the top of their range and you have a quicker tempo, well, then it can be really hard. So then you have to sort of figure out which one to prioritize. Like if that key is absolutely the right key at the top of their range, it might help to slow the song down a little bit. So I can't overemphasize how important it is at the beginning, and at the beginning of the writing and pre-production stage, but also at the beginning of the recording, to try to really get those things locked down and out of the way. So if you're working with a click, that you can create a tempo map if it's needed, or you just know if you're recording without, that you are kind of staying in a relative tempo to be able to make edits between takes. Because sometimes you might use the beginning of take 3, like I said, and then we'd use the middle of take 7, and then go back to maybe take 4 for the conclusion of the song. And so you want to be able to make those cuts and have it make sense. Now, obviously, if the tempo is slightly different, you're going to have to find the sweet spot of where you can cut those things together. Usually it's at the top, it's at the beginning and ends of sections, right, where they would butt up against each other. And there's, maybe the drummer's playing a drum fill or something, and there's some transitional information. I don't think this particular song was, it's called it's the eighth playlist, I guess you could say, but it's the second take. It's the second full take we made at the chosen key, because we had other takes we had a full take, I guess, in the key of C, but we sort of disregarded that, and we started with take one started with the key of F sharp.